Welcome back to a new semester of In the Zone. I'm your host, Owen Hook. With the Super Bowl on the way, one of the biggest trades in NBA history, a new jersey hanging on the rafters in Iowa, and much more, there's a lot to cover. In the Zone starts right now. Joining me on desk this week are Bailey Toporser and Kaya Wagner. We begin this segment with Caitlin Clark's historic number 22 jersey retired in Iowa this past week. There is no doubt that Caitlin Clark brought more eyes to women's basketball than ever before. Breaking record after record, Clark's number 22 jersey was retired in order to commemorate her amazing contribution to the sport. Bailey, what does the retiring of Caitlin Clark's jersey mean for women's sports?
Well, I mean, I don't think there was any question that Caitlin Clark has been nothing but historic and great for women's sports. You know, she broke record after record with the NCAA all-time leading scorer, D1 leader in single season points, NBA rookie single game assists with 19. That is a huge record that she has held. And also she was Big Ten Player of the Year. Now, people have called it the Caitlin Clark effect, where she has brought more eyes, more attention to women's sports, and honestly has brought up the ratings and in turn is helping people get paid more, which was a big issue in women's sports right now. So I think that Caitlin Clark has only done good for women's sports, and her growth throughout her career is only going to make women's sports more prevalent and more seen by the public, which I think is fantastic.
It's definitely been a contribution for women's college basketball, so we'll see if it affects the WNBA. Kaya, what are your thoughts on the matter?
I definitely agree with Bailey that women's sports, like these women have been working hard for decades and decades, and to have such an amazing player as Caitlin Clark step in and get all this attention, you're going to have athletes in every division, not just D1, getting the chance to kind of make a name for themselves more than they would have prior to Caitlin Clark. And I do definitely think there's going to be spikes in WNBA viewership as well, because people are going to see, they're going to want to see all these female athletes that played either in Clark's time, who are coming in the upcoming year, anything like that. And even you have to think, a decade from now, people are going to still remember Caitlin Clark. And she's definitely going to go down in women's sports history. Like, we're going to be talking about her forever.
Yeah, she is definitely one of the greatest of all time when it comes to college basketball, women's college basketball.
Yeah.
Transitioning to the gridiron, we are going to take a look at the playoff bracket that helped lead to the matchup of the green and red in Super Bowl 59. In the AFC, the Chiefs didn't let the bye week bother them as they beat the Texans and the Bills on their way to chasing the first three-peat in NFL history. On the other hand, the Philadelphia Eagles showcased their dominance throughout the playoffs, handling the Packers in the first round, Rams in the snow, and scoring 55 points against the Commanders. Looking at how the playoffs shaped up, Kaya, did the playoffs live up to their excitement?
They definitely did on both sides, like NFC and AFC. Every single one of those games were good, especially that last week when you had the Eagles versus the Commanders and the Chiefs versus the Bills. Both of those games, you went in knowing that they were going to be good, they were going to play good games, and there was a lot of hope for a lot of people, especially in the game of the Eagles versus the Commanders because of Jaden Daniels being, he's a rookie quarterback. So there was hope there, and he is good, but the Eagles were stronger, and I think the matchup is going to be, it's going to be close. They're very evenly matched teams. Definitely, like, don't let Saquon Barkley get the ball. And I think that we're definitely going to see a lot of the Chiefs against Barkley. Chiefs defense is going to have their eye on him. I think a lot more players are going to have to step up for the Eagles. I think Barkley has been carrying them, but it's going to be a great time for so many others to showcase and prove that for the Eagles, it's not just Saquon Barkley, like everyone's saying. that they are a strong overall team.
Yeah, even as an Eagles fan, we kind of do rely a little bit on high-end talent to get us by. Bailey, I assume you're excited for the Super Bowl.
Yes, very much so. As a Chiefs fan, I'm very excited and hopeful for them to come back for a three-peat. But I just want to quickly talk about the Bills game versus the Chiefs. I was on the edge of my seat. I think I had heart palpitations. I was sitting there literally sweating. I was like, oh my gosh, I truly thought for a second that the Bills were going to win. Now, I do want to say, I personally believe that the Bills-Chiefs game, the Bills were a better team than the Commanders were. So I think that if the Eagles were to have gone against the Bills, I'm not saying that any chance that obviously would not have happened, but I'm saying if they had to, I don't think the Eagles would have blown out the Bills as much as they kind of did the Commanders. I think that it would have been a much closer game. I know that was what some people were talking about, saying that, well, it was way closer in the Chiefs game, which means the Chiefs aren't as good. I really think it came down to the Bills on that one. I give props to them. They were a really good team. They were really gritty. They went out there, they fought their way through, and it really came down to, I would say, Mahomes having 4 consecutive passes in the possession that set up Butker to be able to make the field goal with 3 minutes and 33 seconds left, set up the Chiefs to end up taking it and winning at the end. It really came down towards the end for them, and I'm telling you, the Chiefs can play when it matters. And so that's, I think, is going to be one of the bigger things to consider going into the Super Bowl for them.
I do definitely think no matter who takes the Lombardi, it's going to be a close game. And it's going to be a good game, which is always great to be how you end the season with 2 good teams playing against each other. So
It's definitely going to be close, but me personally, I got to root for my Birds.
I do too, but I'll give props where props are due.
Exactly.
Speaking of which, it's officially that time of year again, and the big game is just on the horizon. Super Bowl Sunday will see everyone's favorite, the Kansas City Chiefs, return to the Super Bowl again. And standing in their path are the Philadelphia Eagles, boasting an arguably stronger team than they had in their matchup in 2023, even managing to beat out the Washington Commanders to earn their spot in the Super Bowl. Before we give Bailey a chance to say what we all know she's going to say, Kaya, keeping in mind that only 9 other teams have had repeat matchup in the Super Bowl, do you think we'll see a Chiefs win again for the 3rd time in a row, or do you think the Eagles will come out on top?
I do think the Eagles are going to have so much more fight, knowing that just 2 years ago, this is the team that they lost against. That's something that most athletes know. When you're going against a team that you lost to with such a fresh wound, with so many players that have played them before in such a big game, that they are definitely going to come in with a lot of fight, with a lot of drive. They're gonna want to prove we can beat the Chiefs. And a lot of people are backing the Eagles simply just because they don't want a three-peat, which, yes, a three-peat would be historic. And as a sports nerd, I'm like, oh, it would be cool, but at the same time, I gotta back my Birds. And realistically, it's just they're gonna want that win so much more because they're kind of going into this as an underdog, because a lot of people think the Chiefs can't be beat, even though it did happen twice prior to this. But there is still that in the air. There's talk of, well, the Chiefs bribed the refs, which I don't agree with. That might be a hot take. Referees have a job. It's not an easy one. So I do respect a lot of refs' decisions. And they are a tough team. They're a good team. They're a close team. They're close, and any championship team needs those bonds. And the Chiefs do have that. But I do think the Eagles definitely within the last 2 years have built that stronger bond that they're able to work together and hopefully pull off a win.
Yeah, hopefully this time is the time where they win their first Super Bowl since 2018. Bailey, speak away.
So obviously, I think the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl, but I have my reasons, okay? I think the Chiefs are going to have, as Kaya kind of mentioned before, a lot of focus on Saquon. If the Chiefs cannot hold back Saquon, they will not win. And I am the first one to say that. Saquon Barkley is one of the best players I've honestly ever seen at such a young age be able to go out there and play so effectively on the field. I will say there's going to be a lot of focus on him. Now, right now, Mahomes is the only QB with a better record than Hurts. So I have to talk up Mahomes for a little bit. He's my favorite. He has played very efficiently throughout his season, the postseason, to get him that better record than Hurts. And I feel like it's going to be a battle of the quarterbacks in that way. You're putting the number 1 versus the number 2 together. And honestly, I think it's going to be a really, really great game to watch. I don't think anybody, unless you're voting for that team, is going to want a blowout Super Bowl. No. You want it to be gritty. You want it to be interesting. You want it to be close. That's what it comes down to. And that's also why I think that the Chiefs are going to come out on top. They have proven through the regular season and the postseason now that they are able to come out on top when it matters. And that is something that I think they are going to be able to take and put into their plays. I think that they're going to be able to come out on top in the fourth quarter. They're a fourth quarter team, and they're going to end up on top. I have full respect towards the Eagles. They are a fantastic team. I believe this is the best they've played in a very long time. They create a lot of very dynamic plays. They have a really strong defense, but I still think it's going to be Chiefs on top by the end of it. But we'll see. That's why they play the game.
This is true.
Well, I know a lot of people who are rooting for the Chiefs, or some people who are rooting for the Chiefs. I know some people who are rooting for the Eagles, myself included, but I also know people who are rooting for the Meteor.
That's true.
We now send it over to Krista Ricks for the latest in broader athletics. Krista?
Thanks, Owen. Due to the performance in the classroom during the fall semester, the Millersville women's swim team was named a Scholar All-American team by the College Swimming and Diving Coaches Association of America. To earn this recognition, teams were required to achieve a GPA above a 3.0 during the fall semester. The 16 swimmer roster combined for a 3.19 team GPA. Now let's dive back into the pool. The Marauders posted a 5-4 dual meet record in the 2024-2025 and could contend for their best ever PSAC championship finish in a week as they enter the meet with a 25 top 20 times in individual events. Over the winter break, 3 players reached the 1,000 point club on the basketball court. Men's basketball senior Drew Stover reached the 1K during an away game against Shepherd. Women's basketball graduate student Kylie March and senior Micaiah Shaw reached 1K on their home court at Pasilum Gymnasium. Millersville baseball is gearing up for a strong 2025 season with a deep dynamic lineup and a renewed focus on in-season adjustments. The return of Bryn Taylor, a 2-time PSAC East Athlete of the Year, brings leadership, elite hitting, and unfinished business as he looks to push the Marauders back to championship contention, with key players adding speed and consistency to the offense and a hungry roster looking to bounce back from last season's early postseason exit. Millersville is poised to be top contender once again. Now back to the desk to discuss shocking NBA trades. Owen?
Returning to the hardwood, the NBA world was shaken with the blockbuster trade nobody saw coming, and some still struggling to believe is true. With the 3-team deal between the Mavericks, Lakers, and the Jazz, where Anthony Davis is now a Dallas Maverick and Luka Doncic wearing the legendary purple and gold threads. The surprising deal came as a shock to the whole NBA world, including the players themselves, with Doncic himself saying, quote, "I was almost asleep when I got the call, and I had to check to see if it was April 1st, end quote. Some people are calling this the trade of the century, while others are saying this could be the biggest mistake for the Lakers since they traded for Chris Paul in 2011. Bailey, what do you think of the Lakers trading Davis for Doncic, and will it actually pay off in the future?
I think that the Mavericks messed up. I do not think that was a smart move on the Mavericks' part, period. I think that Anthony Davis, as good as he is, he's injured a lot. And I think that's going to hurt the Mavericks. I don't think that it was smart for them to get rid of Doncic, who literally can be said as one of the top 3 players in the NBA right now. I think that you were trading somebody who's truly fantastic for somebody who can be sometimes, if he's not sitting on the bench, hurt. And so I think that was not a very smart move. For the Lakers, it's a gamble. I do think that with Luka's size, his skill, his general basketball IQ, I think they probably were like, yeah, just take him. That's fine. But at the same time, Anthony Davis, when he's healthy, he's probably a top 5 or 10 player in my personal opinion. But he is one of the best two-way forces, in my opinion, whenever he's doing his best and whenever he's healthy. Now, I think that the Lakers are focused a lot on the future right now, where the Mavericks definitely kind of hurt their future, I think, by getting rid of Doncic. That's my opinion on it.
Yeah, and what's crazy is that Doncic wanted to be a Maverick too, and now they're letting go of him.
Exactly.
Kaya, what do you think about the whole trade involving Anthony Davis and Luka Doncic?
I do agree with Bailey. It does seem like a mess up. I know there were some rumors that with Doncic, it was very much like a team blending thing, as in he wasn't meshing well with the team. There were locker room, behind the scenes stuff. Just rumored. We don't know how much is true, but they're making a mistake trading for someone who's not healthy, realistically. Someone who's very rarely not injured. And I don't think that's smart, but we don't know what they're thinking, so.
Yeah, it's kind of a gamble, as Bailey put it, so it really is left up to chance. With 2 days left before the trade deadline, there was another headline 3-team trade between the Kings, Bulls, and Spurs, with all-star guards De'Aaron Fox going to San Antonio and Zach LaVine going to the West Coast to join the Sacramento Kings, including multiple players and draft picks. In addition to names like Kevin Durant and Jimmy Butler being top names with new potential landing spots by the time the deadline comes and goes. Kaya, were you surprised by this trade? And where are some potential spots for Butler and Durant?
I was surprised, for sure. And honestly, it's definitely seeming like a lot of teams are almost scrambling because they realize that deadline it's literally 2 days away at 3 p.m. Like, it is close. So it seems like this weekend was a big, the deadline. We have a deadline. As far as Butler goes, especially Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat have had issues for years. He's the Miami Heat's problem. And I don't know, realistically, if a team will accept a trade for him, knowing that he comes with a reputation. Because with any team sport, you want someone who works well, doesn't have a lot of drama, a lot of controversy associated with them, especially in the locker room. So it's definitely a matter of, will a team, yes, he's good, but will a team want to risk a player who's like that, who brings almost like a sense of bad blood with him?
Yeah, we'll see. He actually used to be a Sixers problem, and now our Sixers problem apparently is Joel Embiid. Bailey, what are your thoughts on where Durant and Butler could go?
Well, I think, kind of going back to the trade a little bit, I think that Fox to the Spurs, he has been a pinnacle for kind of the Kings trying to rebuild themselves in a way. So I think that Fox is going to help propel the rebuild around kind of Victor Wembanyama in that kind of way. I think he's going to kind of be an element that's going to help propel the Spurs in the right direction. Now, the Sacramento, on the other hand, I think that they killed it with bringing LaVine to the Kings. I think that he is a major scoring punch for them. I think that he is going to be a really explosive wing, which they kind of need right now. And I think, is going to set them up for a really good postseason run, which I think, in the end, is going to help them, obviously. Now, Durant, I thought about this one a little bit. I really could see him going to the Suns, maybe, or even the Mavs or the Heat. That was kind of where I was kind of sitting. On the other hand, I think Jimmy Butler, talking kind of about what you were saying, he brings negative energy wherever he goes, which I think a lot of teams are not going to want. But I do think maybe the Clippers or the Celtics might take him. There was even, I read an article saying the 76ers might take him again. I don't know why they would do that, in my opinion. I understand the 76ers aren't doing very well, but at the same time, I don't think that's the answer for them, just being the energy that he brings to the team. But I'm really curious to see especially where Jimmy Butler ends up, if it's anywhere new. Who's willing to accept him it's not where could he go, it's who's willing to accept him, I think, with him.
Yeah, he used to be a Sixers problem. Now he's a Heat problem, and who knows where he'll be next.
Agreed.
That'll do it for this episode of In the Zone. For Bailey Toporser, Kaya Wagner, Krista Ricks, and the entire In the Zone crew, I'm your host, Owen Hook. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time right here on In the Zone.